I never thought a single moment could unravel everything I had been holding together for years. But that day, the day I almost walked away from everything I knew, it felt like life had finally pressed too hard on every fragile part of me. And yet, in that same moment, when I felt more alone than ever, my cat, my sweet orange tabby named Oliver, refused to leave my side. He became the one thread that kept me from completely falling apart. If I hadn't lived it myself, I wouldn't believe how deeply an animal could sense something shifting inside a person, something even I couldn't articulate. But Oliver knew, long before I did. The day began like a storm that doesn't announce itself. Quiet, heavy, almost deceptive. I woke up feeling drained, as if someone had pulled the color out of the world overnight. I remember lying there in bed staring at the ceiling for what felt like hours, unable to convince myself to move. And that alone was strange, because my cat always woke me early. Oliver wasn't the type to wait politely for breakfast. He usually pawed at my cheek or meowed directly into my ear with zero remorse. But that morning, he didn't. Instead, he curled into the crook of my arm, pressing his head gently against my chest, as if he knew something inside me was dimming. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't push myself to get up. I didn't force a smile. I didn't pretend anything was fine. I just stayed there, breathing shallowly, feeling his tiny heartbeat against me. I remember thinking, this can't be normal. I'm not supposed to feel like this. But the weight inside me didn't care about logic. It didn't care about reason. It felt like the world had piled itself onto my chest, and I was too tired to even try lifting it off. I had been pushing through exhaustion, pressure, stress, expectations, and disappointments for months. And that morning, my mind simply stalled. There were no plans, no tasks, no hope. Just a numb heaviness that made me want to disappear inside the silence of my room. But Oliver wouldn't let me sink into it. He kept nudging me, brushing his whiskers against my face, placing his warm paw on my jaw like he was anchoring me to something real. He would shift positions, look at me with those bright amber eyes, then quietly resume his watch over me. It felt like he had made a decision long before I had. I wasn't going to face this day alone. Still, the heaviness kept pulling at me. I forced myself out of bed hours later, not because I wanted to, but because Oliver finally stood up, chirped at me softly, and walked a few steps toward the door. He didn't look back to check on me like he usually did. He just walked ahead with this unusual determination, like he expected me to follow him. And I did. My feet touched the cold floor, and I winced, realizing I hadn't opened the blinds. The room felt dark and stale. I walked like someone moving underwater, slow, disconnected, barely aware of my surroundings. As soon as I reached the hallway, Oliver brushed against my legs and stayed close, almost glued to me. Not once did he run ahead or get distracted. He stayed so close I had to alter my steps to avoid tripping over him. That alone should have told me something was wrong. Cats, even the affectionate ones, don't usually act like shadows unless they're stressed or sensing something intense. I made my way to the kitchen and reached for Oliver's food bowl. My hands were shaking, and I didn't know why. I poured the kibble slowly, listening to the soft clatter of the pieces hitting the metal bowl. Usually, Oliver would jump excitedly, tail flicking, eyes wide. But this time, he didn't eat. He just stared at me, his eyes scanning my face, then my posture, like he was studying me. I blinked slowly, confused. "Go ahead," I whispered, forcing some air out of my lungs. "It's okay." He didn't move. Not one step. Instead, he walked to me, pressed his forehead against my knee, and let out the softest, saddest meow I had ever heard from him. It was so gentle, so fragile that it felt like it broke something inside me. Tears rushed to the back of my throat before I even realized I was crying. I knelt down and touched his fur. "I'm okay," I lied. The words felt like ash falling from my mouth. But I wasn't okay. Oliver knew it, and the truth was, I had reached a point where I couldn't hide it anymore, even from myself. For weeks, my job had become unbearable. Every day felt like I was walking into a room filled with expectations I couldn't meet, no matter how hard I pushed. My boss would pile on tasks that were impossible to finish within any sane time frame, then question me when I couldn't complete them quickly enough. My coworkers weren't cruel, but everyone was drowning in their own responsibilities. No one noticed I was barely keeping myself afloat. I didn't talk about it to anyone. Not my family, not my friends. I didn't want to be a burden. At night, I felt drained beyond anything I'd ever experienced. I wasn't sleeping well. I was barely eating. I felt like I was trapped inside a life that kept demanding more from me than I could give. And that morning, everything inside me simply gave out. I sat on the kitchen floor, knees bent, hands covering my face, and I let the tears fall. Not the loud, dramatic kind, the exhausted kind, the kind you don't even have the energy to fight, the quiet collapse that comes after months of pretending you're fine. Oliver sat pressed against me the whole time. He didn't leave to eat. He didn't go to the window. He didn't chase shadows on the wall like he usually did. He simply stayed there, breathing gently, grounding me with his warmth. I don't know how long I stayed on that floor, but eventually, the tears slowed, and a chill ran up my spine. I felt empty, almost hollow. And for a moment, a dangerous thought crossed my mind. Something like, maybe I should just stop trying. Not in a harmful way. More like giving up entirely on every effort, every fight, every expectation, every part of my life that demanded more from me than I could give. I wanted to shut down completely, disconnect from everything. Walk away from every responsibility, every pressure, every person. Just vanish into silence. I wasn't thinking of hurting myself. I just wanted everything to stop. Oliver sensed it instantly. He climbed directly into my lap, something he hadn't done since he was a kitten, and pushed his body against my stomach. He looked up at me, eyes round and unblinking, then placed one paw on my chest like he was staking a claim. "You're not going anywhere. You stay here. With me." That was the moment I finally broke. I wrapped my arms around him, burying my face into the soft fur at the top of his head. I whispered, "I'm tired, Ollie." My voice cracked. "I'm so tired." He purred. Not his usual playful purrs. This one was deep and constant. It vibrated through my chest like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. It grounded me. It reminded me that someone, still cared whether I stood still or fell apart. Hours passed like that. I didn't move. Oliver didn't either. At some point, I realized I hadn't eaten anything. My stomach ached from the emptiness. My head felt light, almost floaty. I stood up slowly, still feeling that crushing emotional weight. But enough clarity had returned for me to realize I needed to take care of basic things. Food, water, a shower. But every time I disappeared from Oliver's sight, he followed me. He didn't even wait to see if I'd return. He stayed glued to me as if he had a mission. Don't leave her alone. Not today. When I went to the bathroom, he sat outside the door and cried until I reopened it and let him inside. When I went to lie on the couch, he jumped up and laid directly across my chest, refusing to move. When I stepped toward the front door, just to check the mail, he panicked. His tail puffed up, and he ran in front of me, blocking the doorway. Then he let out a loud, desperate yowl. I froze. He had never done that before. I stepped back slowly, and only then did he relax, walking in circles around me until I returned to the couch. That was when it hit me. Oliver wasn't just being clingy or affectionate. He was reacting to something inside me. He could feel that I was slipping into a mental fog, withdrawing from everything. And he wasn't going to let that happen. Not on his watch. I leaned back on the couch, tears streaming again, softer this time. Not out of despair, but out of a strange, bittersweet relief. Someone noticed. Someone cared. Even if that someone had whiskers and tiny paws. Oliver curled beside me, keeping one paw resting gently on my arm. His eyes stayed half open, monitoring me like he had appointed himself my guardian for the day. As the hours passed, I felt the fog inside me start to shift. Not completely, but enough for me to breathe more deeply. Enough for me to think clearly again. Enough for me to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as alone as I had convinced myself I was. At one point, I whispered to him, "What would I even do without you?" He answered with a slow blink. "The way cats say, I trust you. I'm here." It was the first moment all day I felt something warm inside me that wasn't pain. And that is when something finally changed. Small, subtle, but powerful. I stood up, walked to my bedroom, opened the blinds, and let sunlight spill into the room. It illuminated everything. The unmade bed, the pile of laundry, the cluttered desk, but it also illuminated me. The warmth on my skin felt like a reminder. You exist. I needed that reminder. Oliver followed me, brushing against my legs with every step, and I found myself taking the smallest, most fragile breath of gratitude. I wasn't okay, but I wasn't lost anymore. Someone had pulled me back. Someone tiny, orange, and determined. And the story was only beginning. I didn't realize how long I had been standing there in the sunlight until Oliver jumped onto the windowsill beside me. He sat with his tail wrapped neatly around his paws, staring outside as if he were showing me the world I had been ignoring for weeks. He leaned his head gently against my arm, and I felt another wave of emotion rise in my chest, not the crushing heaviness from before. This time it was something softer, something like awareness, a reminder that life hadn't completely disappeared around me. I had just stopped looking at it. I sat on the edge of the bed while Oliver stayed pressed against my hip. The sunlight warmed both of us, and for a moment I just breathed. Really breathed. The first deep, steady breath I had taken all day. And it felt strange, like my lungs weren't used to expanding fully anymore. But it also felt good, necessary, like the first small step out of a long, gray tunnel. Oliver nudged my arm again, and I smiled weakly at him. "I'm trying," I whispered, and it was the truth. I didn't have strength for anything big, but I could try, just a little, just enough. I got up and walked to the kitchen again. This time when I picked up Oliver's food bowl, he didn't stare at me with concern. He meowed softly, encouragingly, and finally began to eat. Hearing the tiny crunches was strangely grounding, like each sound was pulling me further back into reality. I poured myself a glass of water, then another, realizing how dehydrated I'd become. After drinking, I stood there gripping the edge of the counter as another ripple of exhaustion rolled through me. Emotional exhaustion, physical exhaustion. It was all tangled together. But Oliver finished his meal, walked over, and brushed his tail against my leg as if reminding me, one step at a time. I moved to the couch and pulled a blanket over me, feeling a deep chill settle into my bones, the kind that follows after hours of emotional unraveling. Oliver curled up on my chest again, tucking his head under my chin. His purring was steady and grounding, almost like a heartbeat outside my own. As I lay there, my mind drifted to thoughts I had been avoiding. The pressure at work, the unrealistic expectations, the constant feeling that I was running on fumes while pretending everything was fine. I thought about the day before, when my boss handed me another pile of tasks with a casual, "You'll figure it out," as if I hadn't already been fighting to stay afloat. I thought about the nights I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling like something inside me was slipping further away. And I thought about how I didn't tell anyone, not because I didn't trust them, but because I didn't want my exhaustion to become someone else's burden. But today, whether I wanted it or not, Oliver forced everything into the open. He wouldn't let me hide from myself anymore. Not when he sensed something was wrong. Not when he felt me withdrawing into a space he couldn't allow. I stroked the top of his head gently. "Thank you for staying," I whispered. "I don't know why you knew, but you did." His purring grew louder, as if in response. As the afternoon turned into evening, I started to feel the weight inside me shift a little. Not fully lifting, but loosening enough for fresh air to reach the parts of me that had been suffocating. I realized I needed help. I didn't need to carry everything alone anymore. The moment I recognized that, a small sense of clarity surfaced. A fragile one, but a real one. Oliver must have sensed this new mental shift too. He finally got off my chest, stretched his legs dramatically, like cats do when they're satisfied, and curled up beside me, close enough to touch, but no longer guarding me every second. He seemed to understand I was out of the darkest part of the fog. Later that night, I finally took a shower. My muscles ached as the warm water hit my skin, almost like they were thawing from a long freeze. When I stepped out, I caught my reflection in the mirror, my eyes puffy, my face tired, but somehow softer. There was a faint look of someone who had been through something painful, but was finally resurfacing. When I returned to the bedroom, Oliver was waiting on the bed. He didn't jump or chirp excitedly. Instead, he gently lowered his head and blinked at me slowly, as if saying, "You made it through today. I'm proud of you." I crawled into bed, and he curled right against my ribs. I fell asleep faster than I expected, wrapped in the comfort of knowing I wasn't entirely alone. The next morning, things didn't magically improve. The world didn't suddenly brighten into something beautiful. But there was a difference. A small but important one. I opened my eyes without that crushing emptiness weighing down on me. Instead, I felt tired but steady. Fragile but present. Oliver sat beside my pillow, staring at me with an expression that looked suspiciously like satisfaction. He let out a soft meow, a regular one this time, not filled with distress. "Morning, Ollie," I whispered, scratching behind his ear. He leaned into my hand, happy, content, confident that whatever happened the day before, he had helped pull me back from it. I spent that morning doing things slowly, intentionally. I made breakfast for myself for the first time in days. I opened all the blinds to let sunlight fill every room. I cleaned the kitchen a little. I folded clothes. Everything was small, almost insignificant. But each task felt like reclaiming a part of myself. At one point, I sat on the couch and let the sunlight warm my face. Oliver jumped into my lap and curled into a ball. I felt a lump form in my throat, but it wasn't from sadness. It was from gratitude so deep I couldn't fully express it. I thought about the moments I almost let everything swallow me, the moments I thought I had no more strength left, and how a small, loyal cat refused to let me disappear into my own silence. Oliver saved me in a way I didn't know I needed saving. Later that afternoon, I made an important decision. I opened my laptop, took a deep breath, and typed out a message to my boss explaining that I needed time off. Not an apology, not an excuse, just the truth. I was overwhelmed. I needed rest. I needed to breathe. My finger hovered over the send button for a long time, but Oliver jumped onto the table, sat beside the laptop, and looked at me with those steady amber eyes. "I know," I whispered to him. "I have to do this." and I clicked send. A wave of fear hit me, followed by relief so strong it nearly knocked the air out of my lungs. I didn't know how my boss would respond, but for once, I wasn't pushing myself past my limit. I wasn't ignoring the signs. I wasn't pretending anymore. For the rest of the week, I focused on myself. I slept. I rested. I ate better. I talked to a close friend about what I had been feeling. And through all of it, Oliver stayed close. Not anxiously like before, but quietly, confidently, like he knew his presence mattered. One evening near the end of the week, I sat on the floor beside him as he played with one of his toys. I watched him bat it around with exaggerated enthusiasm, and I found myself laughing softly. The sound surprised me, because I hadn't heard myself truly laugh in weeks. Oliver heard it too. He stopped mid-pounce and looked at me with the funniest expression, like he was confused about what I was doing. So I laughed again, louder this time, and he responded by running over to me and rubbing his face against my palm. "Thank you," I told him. "You stayed when I needed someone to stay." I don't know if he understood the words, but he understood the emotion. He blinked slowly again and curled up in my lap. It's strange how animals sense things humans often miss, how they pick up on emotions we try so hard to hide, how they anchor us without ever saying a word. I didn't give up that day, because Oliver didn't give up on me. And I will never forget that. Even now, whenever I feel the world pressing too hard or the weight of expectations tightening around me, Oliver seems to know. He'll hop onto my lap, rest his paw on my arm, or sit behind me as I work. He listens to my breathing. He watches my body language. He senses shifts before I do. He became more than a pet that day. He became my guardian, my lifeline, my quiet hero with orange fur and a heart big enough to pull me back from the darkest edge of myself. And sometimes, when I catch him staring at me with those wise amber eyes, I swear he remembers that day too. The day everything almost fell apart, and the day he refused to let it. I survived that moment because of him, and I'm here now, stronger, more aware, more honest with myself, because in my weakest moment, he simply refused to leave my side. Thank you for listening to my story. It means more than you know. If this video touched your heart even a little, please consider sharing it with someone who may need a reminder that small acts of love can change everything. And if you'd like to support more stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for staying until the end. May peace and warmth fill your days, and may you always have someone, human or animal, who refuses to leave your side when you need them most.